She stepped into the ICU with a clipboard pressed to her chest. Just another nurse moving through the hum of machines and rain against the windows. Yet beneath that calm routine waited something no one else in the room could sense, a truth about to rise from the steady rhythm of a single fragile heartbeat. And the silence before it was already thinning. "Doctor, her rhythm isn't right." Elena Ward said it low but clear, eyes on the ICU monitor as the green trace skated across. She'd already checked the leads, the IV, the oxygen. Room 14 smelled faintly of saline and overbrewed coffee. Rain ticked the high window like a metronome. Dr. Patrick Harlow didn't look up from the tablet. "Artifacts. She's post-op. Keep it steady." A junior intern snorted softly, the kind of laugh people let out when they believe the room is on their side. "Monitors glitch," he murmured, not quite under his breath. Elena didn't answer. She tapped the waveform menu, widened the strip, listened. There was a whisper in the pattern. Too early, then too late. Not panic yet, but not nothing. The elderly woman in the bed breathed with effort, mouth slightly open, skin the pale of candle wax. A young granddaughter sat by the glass, palms flat to it, as if proximity could substitute for touch. "Doctor?" Elena tried again. "It's not artifact." Harlow finally glanced over, jaw tight, eyes quick as a blade. "We have 6 other cases. Ms. Ward, check the line, change the leads, and stop chasing ghosts. Ms. Ward." Always that when he needed distance. Elena lifted the blanket at the patient's shoulder and resecured the sticky pads. Not because they were loose, but because the motion calmed her hands. She had learned to count breaths in seconds the way some people count prayers. 12 years earlier, she'd counted contractions this way, sitting on a bathroom floor with a towel around her shoulders, trying not to wake her husband because she wanted one more hour of ordinary before their boy arrived and turned them into parents. 2 years later, she'd counted the minutes in a waiting room while a surgeon used words like rupture and not compatible, and the counting hadn't saved anything at all. Had almost finished medical school once. Then life had turned like a wheel, and nursing, steady, honest, close to the bedside, had made more room for diapers and grief and the kind of fatigue that never says its name. She learned to measure wins differently, a hand held at 3 a.m., a bed sore that never formed, a breath that steadied because she noticed a whisper a minute sooner than someone else. Titles didn't change the sound a heart made when it wanted help. The intern leaned toward Harlow. "It's just PVCs, maybe. We can adjust later." Elena's eyes tracked the wave again, into the cuff, out of the cuff. There. A hiccup the color of trouble. "I want the potassium checked," she said. Harlow sighed. "Write it." If labs have time, he was brilliant. She knew this. He cut like poets write. Clean lines, no hesitation. He was also tired, cornered by time and politics and donors who wanted outcomes that gleamed. Nurses like Elena didn't gleam. They held. They kept. She moved past them both and verified the IV site. No infiltration, no swelling. She traced the tubing with fingers that remembered piano keys from childhood. A church basement upright with 3 sticky notes on middle C. Her father had been a janitor. He used to say, "If you learn to listen to old machines, they talk before they fail." He'd meant boilers and vacuum pumps. Elena had discovered hearts did it too. "Ms. Ward," Harlow called, already turning toward the door. "If it makes you feel better, run your checks. We cannot reorder the world because a monitor beeped wrong." Elena nodded once. "If it makes you feel better?" She tucked the blanket tighter around the patient's shoulder. The woman's eyelashes trembled, a small human flutter beneath all the plastic and tape. Elena thought of her own son at 19, pretending not to be worried about midterms and money. He still sent her photos of sunsets from the dorm roof. He didn't say, "Are you sleeping?" He said, "Clouds look like ribs tonight." She texted back hearts and questions about laundry. In the doorway, 2 family members whispered to each other, polite and lost. Elena stepped out long enough to touch the granddaughter's wrist with a gloved knuckle. "She's resting," she said. "I'm keeping a close eye." "Are you really?" the girl asked, not rude, just desperate. "Yes," Elena said. "Really." Back at the bed, she opened the chart, added a quiet line. Irregularity noted. Request potassium, mag, ABG, and began the simple work that is not simple. Adjust pillow, retape tubing, silence a nuisance alarm, refuse to silence the real one inside her own chest. She watched the wave form out of the corner of her eye, the way one watches a child play too close to stairs. Ms. Ward. Harlow's voice again. We're moving to 14B. If anything actually changes, call. If anything actually changes. The intern pushed the door wider with his shoulder, tablet hugged like a shield. You know, not everything needs a crisis, he said, and his smile was almost kind. Elena pressed her lips together. She had no appetite for performance. She had stopped asking to be seen years ago. Being useful was easier. Being right when it mattered was enough. She checked the oxygen flow. She checked the Foley output. She reran the cuff. She marked the time, 1912. The rain outside grew heavier, pattering in a new rhythm on metal. The waveform ticked on. Early, late. A stumble. Elena reached for the medication drawer and rested her hand on it without opening. Not yet, she whispered, but only to herself. Hold the line. In the hall, laughter burst from an open charting station, the kind that rises when a joke lands among people who believe the room belongs to them. Elena didn't look up. She watched the patient's chest. In, out. In, out. She pressed 2 fingers to the woman's wrist, felt the river there. Something shifted, minute, undeniable. A breath that reached and didn't quite return. A tone in the monitor that was not the tone before. Elena lifted her head. Now, she said to the empty air, already moving. The first alarm began as a soft pulse, then grew sharp, steady, insistent, undeniable. Room 14 came alive. Lights snapped to brighter tones, red digits flared, and the rain outside sounded suddenly distant, like another world. Elena's voice cut through the confusion. She's losing rhythm. Her hands moved without hesitation, oxygen mask repositioned, IV rate adjusted, bed lowered. The patient's eyelids fluttered, her breath catching on the edge of something fragile. Elena pressed the emergency call. The intern stumbled forward, unprepared for what their laughter had just mocked minutes ago. Dr. Harlow burst back in, gloves already half on. What happened? She dropped into Vitash, Elena said, still calm, her tone the even rhythm of training and instinct. Magnesium now. Push 1 gram. He hesitated, scanning the monitor. Are you sure? Elena didn't answer with words. She was already drawing the medication, clearing air from the syringe, pressing it into his hand. Now, doctor, he complied. The intern's trembling fingers clamped the IV port, the numbers flashing faster, then slower. The monitor's jagged line steadied for a heartbeat, then another. The beeping softened, settling into a quiet, regular cadence that filled the room like a lullaby. Harlow exhaled, shoulders sinking. For a long moment, no one spoke. The granddaughter outside the glass was crying, not knowing why, only that the lights had changed and the grown-ups looked afraid. Elena finished adjusting the drip, then took a small step back. We're stable. The silence afterward was not peace but realization. It moved like a ripple across the room, the recognition that the woman they'd brushed aside had seen the storm coming first. Harlow glanced at her, expression unreadable. His voice was rough. You called it, Elena only nodded. She was trying to tell us. He stared at her for another beat, then at the patient, who lay still but alive, skin flushing faintly pink under the fluorescent light. The hum of machines filled the space again, smaller now, like a breath returning after fear. The interns slipped out quietly, shame softening their footsteps. Harlow stayed behind, removing his gloves slowly, his reflection caught in the window beside the rain. Elena cleaned the edges of the bed, straightened the sheets, and rewrote the order list with clean, careful script. Her hands were steady, though her pulse was not. The adrenaline always faded faster than she expected, leaving behind the ache of muscles that had been clenched too long. Ms. Ward, Harlow said finally, tone lower. You saw what I didn't. It's my job to listen, she said simply. He nodded once. I should have listened sooner, Elena didn't reply. She had learned long ago that vindication was quieter than victory. Outside, the granddaughter pressed her face to the glass, mouthing something. Thank you, maybe, or please. Elena walked to the door, opened it just enough to step halfway out. She's okay now, she said softly. The girl smiled through tears. When Elena turned back, the overhead lights dimmed to evening mode. The storm outside had thinned into drizzle, streaking silver lines down the window. Somewhere down the corridor, a machine rolled, a cart squeaked. A page echoed, ordinary sounds returning to fill the hollow space fear had left behind. At the nurse's station, the intern was typing the incident report. His voice was barely above a whisper. Should I put you as first responder? Elena shook her head. Put the team. But she looked at him, kind but firm. The patient's alive. That's the story. The boy hesitated, then nodded. His eyes carried the kind of respect that comes when truth replaces arrogance. An hour later, Harlow stopped by again. The rain had cleared, and his coat was draped over one arm. He stood awkwardly, as if the air between them had changed weight. You have family? A son, she said, checking the monitor one last time. College student. He must be proud. She smiled faintly. He worries more than he should. I'd like you to present at tomorrow's briefing, he said. Walk the team through what you saw. She froze for a moment. You'll do fine, he said. They need to hear how you caught it. Then he left, leaving behind the faint scent of antiseptic and rain-soaked wool. Elena sat for a minute beside the bed. The patient's pulse glowed green, steady. She brushed a strand of gray hair from the woman's forehead. Rest now, she whispered. We're through the hard part. She glanced at the clock, 9:03 p.m. Somewhere, her son was probably calling her phone, asking if she'd eaten. She would text him soon, maybe send a photo of the rain on the window. He'd text back something simple. Looks peaceful, Mom. Peaceful. Yes, maybe that was the word. When she finally rose to leave, the monitor beeped softly behind her, each tone even, rhythmic, alive. She turned off the overhead light, leaving only the small lamp glowing near the bed. Its circle of light spread across the floor like a quiet spotlight, illuminating the woman who had nearly slipped away and the nurse who had refused to let her. In that gentle light, Elena paused at the doorway. Her reflection looked older, yes, but also certain. The silence held not emptiness, but respect, and for the first time in a long while, she let it stay.